Why did I pick this? Why did I not know? How did I not know? How could I have not known? Nobody helped me. Why am I here? This doesn't seem like the right path for me. I'm playing small. All those conversations go through your head every day. It's like, really? But now I'm so invested into it. 8 years of college. Now I have spouse, kids, house, cars, stuff. Can't change. Can't walk away. Can't walk out on them. Got responsibilities, got expenses, got bills. And so I can imagine some of your listeners have experienced this, or are experiencing it, or are living it, or are going on that path right now. And so I thought it was the wrong path when in essence it was actually the path I had to go on. And a friend of mine pointed that out to me. He and I grew up together, and he got involved in partying like crazy, drugs, alcohol, all that stuff. Hit rock bottom at age 22, 23, got involved in personal growth, got a mentor, got involved in real estate, and has, now one of the biggest real estate guys here in New Mexico. But he found his why at 22 or 3. I didn't find mine till 55. He's had 40 years of a runway to create and have the impact he's wanted. I've had less than 10 years. So the earlier it is that you find who you are and what you were put here to do, the longer the runway you're going to have to make that impact.
What drives our important choices and decisions? Discovering your why can transform uncertainty into clarity and reveal your path forward. Yet most people spend years, even decades, pursuing goals without understanding their core motivations. My guest on today's show, Dr. Gary Sanchez, is known as Dr. Why. He has identified 9 fundamental motivations that shape human behavior. As founder of the Why Institute, he's developed a revolutionary system to help people uncover their core purpose. His journey began as a successful dentist until a life-threatening medical crisis forced him to completely reinvent his life's work. Through this profound wake-up call, he discovered his true mission, helping others find their essential driving force. In our conversation, Dr. Sanchez reveals the patterns he discovered after working with thousands of individuals. He shares the dramatic story of how a single Advil pill nearly ended his life and the spiritual awakening that followed. He explains his innovative Why operating system and how 5 minutes can reveal someone's intrinsic motivation. Most importantly, he demonstrates how aligning with your why transforms every aspect of your life, from career choices to relationships. This episode will give you practical tools to align your life's direction with your deepest truth. So without any further ado, on with the show. Gary, it's so great to have you on the show.
Stephan, thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, so I'd love for us to start with your hero's journey, like how you ended up creating this incredible business and coming into your own mission, your dark night in the tunnel, having the dragon to slay that, I think will inspire our audience here with an incredible journey. So why don't we start there?
Yeah. Now, Stephan, this is not what I set out to do. I didn't wake up 15 years ago and say, hey, I think I'm going to create some software to help people figure out what their why is. I was a dentist. I don't know if I should say was or is. Maybe you always are. So I'm a dentist. I don't practice anymore, but I graduated from USC Dental School in 1988. I hate to even say those numbers, but 1988. And the advice that I was given by the gurus of that time was build a great product and people will come. Right? Go out and do the best job you can. People will naturally and mysteriously find out about you and come see you, and you'll have a successful practice. So I spent 20 years doing that, reaching the highest levels you could go to in dentistry, studying with the best mentors, building a beautiful practice, buying all the technology, training a well-trained team, and 20 years later, still blending in with everybody else who said, yeah, I'm a dentist too. Drove me crazy, Stephan. I mean, I'd never worked so hard at something and not gotten the results that I thought I would. My practice wasn't growing. In fact, it was getting smaller. It was getting more and more refined. And I was either going to quit or I was going to find a better way. And so I went out and I hired a coach, a guy by the name of John Assaraf. You're probably familiar with him. He was in the movie.
He was a guest.
Yeah, so John Assaraf. And through him, I learned how to use the internet. I learned how to do websites and drip campaigns and SEO. And I learned how to tell everybody all about me. The only problem was, what am I going to say? What am I going to say that separates me from everyone else who says, yeah, I'm a dentist too? And since I didn't know, I just stayed quiet until one day I heard him interview Simon Sinek. Simon Sinek wrote the book Start With Why. Probably many of your listeners have read that or seen his TED Talk. 100 million people have now seen that TED Talk. I was one of them. And when I saw that, I said, man, that's what I'm missing. I have a great what, but I don't know my why. So I became obsessed with discovering my why. I called Simon. I said, hey, Simon, I need you to help me discover my why. So he and I spent about 8 months together going back through my life, looking for clues, trying to figure out why I do what I do. When I finally figured it out, my why is to find a better way and then share it. That's when my life started to make sense to me. I've always been in search of a better way. I have a lot of patents and products and inventions that are better ways of doing things. And so in my practice, we stopped talking about what we do, crowns, bridges, fillings, all that fun stuff. And we started talking about why we do, what we believe. And that's when my practice started taking off. We went from just getting by to having abundance. And the right people started coming to us. And so as my practice took off, I started getting calls from other dentists that wanted me to help them do what I did. And so I had to go back and figure out a better way to do what Simon was trying to do. And so I figured out a way to help people discover their why in about an hour. I figured out the right questions and the right sequence. And so I started doing this for anybody that would let me. I worked with thousands of people for free over the next 7 years, helping them figure out their why and build their messaging, marketing, and branding. And I would do this at events, and it was almost kind of like a magic show. I'd be on stage, I'd bring somebody out of the audience on stage with me, discover their why in front of the audience, and then build their messaging, marketing, branding right there. And as I did this over and over, I started to notice patterns and trends and similarities. And I figured out that there's only 9 different whys. And that was the most important thing I figured out. Because once I figured that out, I could teach other people to do what I was doing, and I could get more data. And with that data, I was able to develop the algorithm and write the software where in 2016, I launched the Why Discovery that just found your why. And I gave it away to hundreds of thousands of people to test it. And I had done more why discoveries than anybody in the world. And I was only about 70% accurate. 30% of the time I got it wrong. So if everything in your life, your passion, your purpose, your direction, your messaging, your marketing, your branding is all based on your why, it's pretty important that you get it right. Mm-hmm. The software was 100% accurate, got it right every time. And then in 2021, I launched the WHY.os, or Why Operating System Discovery, that finds your why, your how, and your what, and builds your message for you. And it takes about 8 minutes. And so that's the kind of quick version. But actually kind of what really happened. So I developed all of that, and I was still being a dentist and trying to do this at the same time. I had one foot in each thing, which kind of means you're not doing either very well. And I went to this event in Santa Fe. It's called Zozobra. It's like a Burning Man type thing, but it's like a one night, more of a show. And it was for a buddy's birthday. So, we ate and drank a little bit too much, and I woke up the next day with a headache. And so I took a couple of Advil and went back to bed. No big deal. One of the Advil didn't dissolve, and it lodged in my GI tract, and it burnt a hole right where there was an artery, and I started to bleed internally, and I didn't know it. So I drive back to Albuquerque, where I'm from. It's about an hour away. Actually went to the gym, worked out, came home, and I just really started feeling bad. And so I just started throwing up, and blood was kind of coming out everywhere. Went to the hospital. They made me wait 11 hours because it was a busy weekend. Actually, they gave me an aspirin, which made it worse. And by the time they finally admitted me, my blood pressure was 60/30, and I'd lost half my blood. And so blood in your GI tract acts like a laxative, so you have to use the restroom a lot. So I get up to use the restroom, and I'm not in a private room, so I lock the door behind me. As soon as I lock the door, I pass out, I hit my head on the sink, and end up on the ground, passed out. And luckily, I woke up because there was blood everywhere. I wake up, I push the door open, and then I pass out again. And the next thing I know, somebody found me. The next thing I know, I'm in this bed. They've cut all my clothes off. I have the 2 pads on. They revive me, take me off to surgery to try to get to that bleed to stop it. They couldn't get to it where it was at. It's on the curve, this one curve, so they couldn't get to it. And so they wait and they do a CAT scan to see if I've stopped bleeding. And when they're pumping all the dye into my arm to do the CAT scan, they blow out my arm. And my arm starts filling out with filling up with blood clots. So now they have to do an ultrasound to see where the blood clots are. And the doctor comes in and he says, Gary, you have these blood clots now that are growing into your lungs. And if we don't stop those blood clots, you're going to die from the blood clots. But if we try to stop the blood clots, you're bleeding internally and we can't stop the bleed. I said, so what are we going to do? And he says, I don't know. I don't know what to do. And right then my phone rings, and it's a buddy of mine that's a cardiologist at the hospital. And he says, hey, Gary, I didn't even know you were in here. He said, but I don't like what they're going to do. And so I'm going to take over. And so I was in the ICU for 9 days. A lot of crazy stuff happens to you in the ICU. I don't know if you've ever been there before as a patient, but a lot of stuff happens to you in there. And what finally happened is I had to go to bed one evening with an IV of heparin to stop the blood clots and hope I don't bleed, which I didn't. So then they could finally treat it with heparin. I could treat it with medication. And I finally got out of the hospital. And when I got out and I went back to my practice a couple of weeks later, one of my patients who was in his mid-80s took me aside and he said, hey, Gary, when you got a second chance on life. And when you get to be my age and you look back on your time here, are you going to be glad you stayed a dentist, or are you going to wish you'd taken this why thing to the world? I said, I'm going to wish that I'd taken this why thing to the world. He says, well, then you know what you need to do. And so I walked away from my dental practice. And now I've been doing this for the last 4 years, full time. And so does discovering your why and your how and your what make your life easier? It can, but it can also make it a lot harder, but much more fulfilling. And so that's why I'm doing what I'm doing. This is what I should be doing. This is what I'm compelled to do.
Yeah.
To help people understand who they are by finding their why, their how, and their what, so they can live the life they were meant to live. So it's kind of maybe a longer answer than you wanted, but that's the essence of, I never expected to be doing this. This is not what I set out to do, but I'm so glad that I am.
Mm-hmm. And it seems like you wouldn't have taken that leap if you hadn't had that kind of do or die moment where you almost died. Is that true?
So, yeah. And I'll tell you what it felt like to me. It felt like did you ever see those TV commercials? I think it was T-Mobile, that it was the guy walking with the phone and say, can you hear me now? No. Yeah, I can hear you. Yeah. Can you hear me now? It felt like that. And it felt like it was God tapping me on the shoulder and saying, can you hear me now? And I'm like, no, I got this. I got it. I can handle this. Well, how about now? When it was just the bleed, can you hear me now? No, I can't hear. I still got this. I got this. Well, then when the arm thing happened, no, I still got this. Can you hear me now? No, I still got it. And then when it was the blood clots growing into the lungs and the bleeding and to being told you're going to die and nobody has an answer. Can you hear me now? Oh, yeah, I can hear you. I can hear you loud and clear. And that's
Wow.
what it felt like, because I didn't have an answer. And I didn't have any way to handle that one on my own.
Yeah.
And a lot of crazy stuff happened to me in the hospital that wasn't a coincidence. And
do you believe that there are no coincidences?
Yeah, I don't think there's coincidences. I think there's lessons to be learned and people that were put in your path to help you.
Yeah.
Things that you go through that. I'll give you an example. My entire life, Stephan, I have weighed the same, 162 pounds, my entire life. I can eat like crazy, or don't eat anything at all. And I always weigh the same. But right before I went into the hospital, right before this, I'd put on 17 pounds. Made no sense at all. I had to have those 17 pounds when I was in the hospital, or I would have died. When I got back out, I'm 162 pounds.
Oh, wow.
It's
like a bear going into hibernation.
Yeah. I saw on the scope the hole in my GI tract. It's called a Dolichoid lesion, and it doesn't heal fast. Well, when they went back in after I did the IV of heparin and checked again, it was gone.
Wow.
I don't know if you've ever been in a situation, or your listeners, where you have thousands of people praying for you. I had never had that before. It is an amazingly humbling position to be in. It feels like I can't let these people down. There's a lot of people praying for me.
Yeah.
It's a different perspective that I
Yeah.
never.
I've heard this before, I think from the psychic Michelle White-Dove, and that is that group prayer can actually change the course of a hurricane.
Yeah.
I believe that.
There's nothing it can't do, but it's
Yeah.
weird when it's you.
Mm-hmm.
All of it was weird when it's different when it's someone else sitting in that bed. When you're the one in the bed and they're telling you you're going to die, different animal, totally different animal. I was thinking, I'm going to die from a freaking Advil? That's how I'm going to go out? Really? I wasn't even in pain. I didn't feel anything. And then he walks in and says, you're going to die. I'm like, that can't be. Can't be. I'm not hurting. I'm not hurt. But I was. And so, anyways, that's how I ended up on this journey, fully on this journey.
Yeah.
Felt like I had someone tapping me on the shoulder. Right? Do you hear me?
So if this hadn't happened, would you still be a dentist?
Probably.
Oh,
I would have.
yeah. Can you hear me now?
Yeah. Probably would have tried to do both still.
Yeah.
Because I walked away from a practice that was doing great. I was working 3 days a week. I had 4-day weekends every week. It's what I wanted to do, but I don't know if I would have had the guts, if you will, to walk away until I was forced.
Funny you use that term.
Yeah. It's not, it wasn't easy. To make that decision.
Yeah.
Of doing,
it takes a leap of faith.
I knew I was really good at that. I knew that world. I knew I'd spent 32 years becoming that dentist, gaining all those skills, and it's hard to walk away from that. I'd invested 32 years of my life, millions of dollars, so much energy, and then to walk away to something I don't know. I don't know anything about how to do. I don't know how to speak on stages. I don't know how to develop software. I don't know how to make all these connections. I don't know who I need. I didn't know anything on that.
And yet you did it.
That, yeah. But
because the universe conspires to make your personal legend a reality if you commit to it. Like in the book, The Alchemist.
It's different talking about it, hearing about it, than when it's you.
Yeah.
It's different. Minor surgery is surgery on somebody else. If it's on me, it's major. It doesn't matter what it is. It's major, right? Yeah. And it's the same sort of thing with that. It sounds great when it's someone else, but when you're walking away from what? You're doing what? To do what? Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
Why would you do that? You don't know what you're doing. You spent all that time. So that's not only the conversation I had in my own head, but it's conversations people had with me. Except for that one man.
Mm-hmm.
So if there's listeners that are struggling with the decision to do what you were meant to do or keep doing what you're doing, I can tell you the leap of faith was worth it.
Yeah.
The fulfillment, the enjoyment. Is it easy? No, it's not easy. Did I make a lot of mistakes? Yes, I made a lot of mistakes. Did I waste a lot of money and time on different things I didn't know what I was doing? Yes. Was it perfect? No. Mm-hmm. But am I so glad I did it? Yes. Would I do it again now that I know what I know? Yes.
Yeah. What's the proverb? Leap and a net will appear.
Yeah.
Something like that. Yeah.
Exactly. And that's kind of how it felt. So I met you. I've met so many wonderful people along this journey. I've connected with so many different groups of people. Now in my dental practice, I was helping a few thousand people. Now I've helped many, many hundreds of thousands of people.
Wow.
And the impact that you can have in helping someone, at least in my case, in helping someone figure out who they are and what they want to do with their life, what direction to go,
Mm-hmm.
has been, every single day is full of ahas and fun. Like right before our call, I did this with a group of in the biotech space, the marketing team of this biotech company, and just the excitement that they got, and finally I know who I am. Finally I can say it. I can tell someone who I am. Finally I have the words to tell the world exactly who I am. Just rocks their world, and I get to do that every day. So it's been a scary, fun, exciting new journey.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, a few different analogies or principles come to mind that I think are relevant to discuss based on your journey. One is this idea of the zone of excellence versus the zone of genius. That's from Gay Hendricks. And another one is that being a jack of all trades versus a master, and being a jack of all trades and being a master of none. So if you're trying to spread yourself across multiple disciplines, be a dentist and be a change maker in the area of personal development and professional development, those are pretty disparate things. Trying to do both at the same time doesn't feel like that would be impactful in comparison to just going all in.
No, and what happens is you let a lot of people down, and I couldn't fully be with I practiced in my dental practice with my brother, and I wasn't there for him. I didn't want to be there anymore. He knew I didn't want to be there anymore. You could just see it, and I wasn't excited about the things I used to be excited about. I knew that I needed to leave when I went to what I used to do is go to all these very high level training weekends or courses or events, and I would see what dentists around the world are doing, and I was like, man, I can't wait to learn how to do that. And I went to one right before all of this, and I sat in the audience and I said, man, that's amazing what they're doing, but I have zero interest in trying to learn that. And that's when I knew I just needed to go. And so the people that are on both sides, you're not helping either of them to the level that you can. So it takes its toll on you. You're doing twice the work with half the impact.
Mm-hmm.
And you can't be in both places at once. You can't do both things to the level that you really want. And so it was a blessing that happened to me.
Yeah.
Because it forced me to make a decision to go all in. Whatever that turns out to be, all in, and it's way better. I don't miss when I walked away from my dental practice. I haven't been back to it once. I don't miss it.
Mm.
I miss the patients. I miss the people. I don't miss the profession and doing and doing it the way and doing it anymore. I was done. And what I'm doing now is just so much fun. And of course, there's parts of it that are not always perfect, but that it's what you're supposed to be doing. A lot to be said for that. A lot to be said for that.
Yeah.
And then it seems like everything in my life has led up to this. All the training and all the things and the people and the way, all the stuff led up to this being the right choice. And people can see it in me. My friends can see it in me. My family can see it in me. My wife and kids know you're doing what you're supposed to be doing.
Yeah.
Before you were being a dentist, it's what you did, it's not who you are. And now I'm actually getting to be me.
But even when you were a dentist and when you were studying dentistry and you were just not even sure what you wanted to be, and you were studying different disciplines and just taking general classes, if you could connect the dots, you would have, I mean, now you can, but if you could have connected the dots then, you would have recognized where it was all leading, like a divine conspiracy. But I'm curious, what is an example of something that now it makes total sense that you were on some, I don't know, detour or strange trajectory, or fascinated about something that was not necessarily part of the plan for your dentistry career?
Well, I thought forever that I should have never been a dentist. I was like, oh, so let's go back in time. Let's go back to all of us when we're in high school. One of the worst things I hated was when my parents' friends had come up to me and said, so what do you want to be? I don't know. How am I supposed? I'm 16 years old. How am I supposed to know what I want to be for the rest of my life? Well, where do you want to go to college? Why do you want to go to that college? I don't know. How am I supposed to know that? So I went where some of my friends were going. And you go to college, and I went with a major of undeclared. How am I supposed to figure out what I want to do with the rest of my life with what I've learned so far? I don't know. And kept that as long as I could until I finally had to make a decision. I picked biology because it was what I had a really good grade in, and it seemed interesting. So I picked biology, and that holds them off for a little while. And then, okay, well, what are you going to do with your biology degree? Well, I don't know. What can I do with it? And so I just picked dentistry because my dad was a dentist and I knew a bit about the lifestyle. It wasn't a lifelong dream. But when I got into dental school, I actually had a great time there. And I had a great time learning. There's so much learning to do, and you're helping people and you're growing. And that aspect of it was wonderful. And so there were many times when I felt like I was playing small in being a dentist. And this isn't what I should have been doing. But when you look back on it, if I hadn't picked dentistry, if I hadn't felt the way that I was, if I wasn't getting the success that I thought I should, I never would have had the motivation to go down the path of what is my why.
Hmm. So the job dissatisfaction was a huge gift because it
Yes,
spurred
it
you into
was.
some action.
Yes, it was. And
Mm-hmm.
it wouldn't, I don't know that would have happened otherwise. It might have, but I don't know that.
Yeah.
And so being a dentist, and one of the nice things about being a dentist is it gave me a nice lifestyle, which allowed me the time to be able to explore those other avenues.
Yeah.
So in essence, I should have been a dentist. I should have been on the path that I was on, but I didn't know it. And I didn't like not knowing that at the time. I don't know why this is happening to me instead of for me. Why did I pick this? Why did I not know? How did I not know? How could I have not known? How could nobody help me? Why am I here? This doesn't seem like the right path for me. I'm playing small. All those conversations go through your head every day. It's like, really? Why now? But now I'm so invested into it. 8 years of college. Now I have spouse, kids, house, cars, stuff. Can't change. Can't walk away. Can't walk out on them. Got responsibilities. Got
Yeah.
expenses. Got bills. And so I can imagine some of your listeners have experienced this, or are experiencing it, or are living it, or are going on that path right now. And so I thought it was the wrong path when in essence it was actually the path I had to go on.
Yeah.
And a friend of mine pointed that out to me.
Mm-hmm.
He and I grew up together, and he got involved in partying like crazy, drugs, alcohol, all that stuff. hit rock bottom at age 22, 23, got involved in personal growth, got a mentor, got involved in real estate, and has, now one of the biggest real estate guys here in New Mexico. But he found his why at 22 or 3. I didn't find mine till 55. He's had 40 years of a runway to create and have the impact he's wanted. I've had, less than 10 years. So the earlier it is that you find who you are and what you were put here to do, the longer the runway you're going to have to make that impact.
Yeah.
The bigger the
And you don't
impact you can
necessarily have to hit rock bottom or have a dark night of the soul. You could be more proactive, more, I don't know, listening to the whispers, right? The still small voice, and take a powerful next action from that, rather than wait for a big, bright neon sign from the universe that you're on the wrong path.
I agree with you. What happens, what I've seen and what I experienced is the downside of busyness. I'm too busy. I got too much going on. I got too much on my plate. I don't have time to think. I'm just trying to live. It's the do versus be. And sometimes it takes for at least for some of us, that smack in the face, that beat down, to be able to stop and say, can you hear me now? Are you listening?
Yeah.
Or are you just still doing? And some
when
people
you
don't need
say
that.
the downside of busyness, that makes me think of a book that you may have read called Outwitting the Devil by Napoleon Hill. He
No.
wrote Think and Grow Rich.
Yep.
Have you read either of those two books?
Yeah, Think and Grow Rich. If I have it sitting around here somewhere right now.
Yeah.
But yes.
Yeah, the 13 Principles. Amazing stuff. Well, he wrote Outwitting the Devil and didn't publish it. And then his widow, after he passed, didn't publish it either, even though it was pretty much finished, the manuscript. She was afraid, and he was afraid when he was alive, that there'd be a lot of blowback. Like, how dare you have a conversation with the devil and then publish that? And, this is witchcraft or sorcery, or this is the devil's work or whatever. Well, in this conversation that Napoleon had with the devil shares some of his secrets to weaning people, like winning people over and weaning them off of the connection with the creator and the heavens. And that most powerful tool he has is called the drift. The drift is where not you just suddenly flip to becoming dark or something. It's just you become more and more asleep, more and more complacent, bit by bit. And that, I think, relates directly to what you were talking about, the downside of busyness, because you get busy and you get complacent and you want to unwind when you come home from work, kick off your shoes, binge watch some stupid Netflix nonsense that just lowers your vibration. And you don't work on the stuff that is really meaningful and what you're here for.
Very true. Very true. And busyness becomes like I don't know if it's an addiction or whatever the word would be, but it becomes what allows me to not have to think about that stuff.
Yeah.
So that I can, I'm too busy to think about that now. I will when I have more time. So how about if I give you a little time? And that's kind of your little smack in the face that slows you down long enough to say, am I really doing what I should be doing? Am I on the right path? Or am I doing things I shouldn't be doing? So
well, that smack in the face can be a lot more painful than a smack. It can be a Mack truck hitting you.
Yes, or
Yeah.
being told you're going to die. Oh yeah,
Yeah.
more than an Advil. Yes.
This
So
reminds me of, I forget who gave the presentation, but it was many years ago. And he shared an analogy that the universe drops these feathers, or God will drop these feathers that will land gently on your shoulder as little nudges, little hints that you need to make a change, or pursue something different, or follow, an intuition. And those are easy to ignore. And if you ignore them, then eventually they turn into bricks. And when the bricks land on you, those hurt. You can also ignore the bricks. And if you ignore them long enough, then eventually the Mack truck comes.
that's pretty accurate. And I would say that was my journey right there. And it led to a shift in direction.
Yeah.
And so once the direction was shifted and the focus became bringing the why, how, and the WHY.os to the world, it is when things really started to happen. And
Mhm.
I love that quote by Jim Rohn. Set a goal for what it will make of you to achieve it. Right, and that's how it's been. What I've had to become in order to do what I wanted to do. So again, for all the listeners, set a goal for what it will make of you to achieve it. And so there was so much I didn't know how to do. Didn't know how to speak on a stage. I didn't know how to do online marketing. I didn't know how to do webinars. I didn't know how to do, you don't have to do any of that as a
But you
dentist.
didn't know, before you knew how to do a root canal, you didn't know how to do a root canal.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So it's what I have to become in order to go where I want to go.
Yeah.
And that's
There's this
been,
great quote, I think it's in the Bible, or maybe it's in the Talmud, that's in the way that you want to go, in that way you will be led.
mm,
So if somebody wants to go down a dark path, then angels will be summoned and deployed to assist you on that dark journey. But if you want to go to the light, if you want to make some sort of revelation of light in the world, then you'll be assisted in that way.
and that's why I think that's valuable for you, the listeners, because the fear that I don't know enough, the fear that I don't have all the tools, the fear that you're not good enough, all those things that come with it, you will overcome when
Yeah.
you set the goal. Depending upon where you want to go, you will find a way to become or add or connect with what you need to take you where you want to go.
Mm-hmm.
And
And the
that's kind of
and the dream,
what
that
happened.
goal could be seemingly impossible, and yet everything's possible. And
My goal
yeah.
on with the so set a goal that scares the heck out of you. My vision for the WHY.os is to be the first step in self-awareness. What that means is when you're trying to figure out who you are, there are a lot of ways you could go about doing it. You could use tools like Myers-Briggs or Colby or StrengthsFinder or DISC. You could go sit in the woods for a year. There's so many different ways you could do it. But if you just start with finding your why, your how, and your what, gosh, it will make all the rest of that so much easier. So my vision is to be that first step that people take when they're trying to figure out who they are, because it'll make all the other methods even better, even more powerful, and even easier. And my
Mm-hmm.
goal is to impact 1 billion people in the next 15 years. That's a scary goal. I don't know how I'm going to get there. I know I am. I don't know how. And once I set that goal, I can't tell you, Stephan, how many people have come forward and said, I want to be part of that. I want to help you get there. If I had set the goal to impact 10,000 people, wouldn't have excited me. I wouldn't have to do anything different. I could have just let it happen and people wouldn't have really come to help me do that. But when I set it to impact 1 billion people, that's scary stuff. And then what do I have to become? How do I have to think differently? How does my team have to think differently in order to make that happen versus 10,000? Yes, we're going to go buy 10,000 on the way. We're already way past that. But it's a scary thing to say, but it's exciting to say. And it's exciting to see who steps up with you and wants to go on the journey with you.
Yeah. Earlier, I alluded to a divine conspiracy or divine setup. I just want to circle back to that for a minute and explore how you see that now in retrospect. Like you mentioned a couple things in the that whole hospital journey. One, you luckily woke up. So you said, luckily I woke up. Well, there's no luck involved. That's my opinion. I want to hear you talk about that for a minute. So you were in the bathroom and you passed out, hit your head, and you luckily woke up. So how did that occur for you? Do you think that an angel, poked you until metaphorically until you woke up, or what? And then the phone rings, and out of all the people that could have called you, it was your friend who was a cardiologist. That very much feels like divine intervention too. So just elaborate a bit on that.
I'll tell you a few things. So I was, when I was finally admitted, interestingly, when I'm sitting in the waiting room, I go to when I check into the ER, I show the person that's checking me in, the nurse, my phone, a picture of when I got sick so she could see what it was. And she said, oh, yeah, you have an upper GI bleed. Well, then I go back into the triage area and the doctor just hands me some pills and said, well, make sure you take these first. And so, I take them. Well, what was that? What did I just take? I didn't even think to ask. What was it? Well, I just gave you some aspirin. I said, aspirin? I have an internal bleed. And you just gave me aspirin? Well, I thought you said you had chest pains. I said, I didn't say I had chest pains. She asked me if I had chest pains, and I said, no, but my neck hurts because I was getting sick so much. Not chest pains. And he goes, oh, well, now I have aspirin in my system, which makes you bleed more, right? So it's a blood thinner, which is exactly what I don't need to take. Then they put me back out in the waiting room. I'm like the last person to get seen. And I am 99% sure I'm the only one in the waiting area that had insurance with this hospital. Everybody else didn't have any, and they all got seen before me, which couldn't figure that one out. But I finally get seen, and then I get checked in. And so I'm laying in the bed there in my room, and the nurse comes in, and I said, and I'm not dumb to all this medical stuff because I am the dentist. And I said, is somebody going to come and help get this bleed stopped? She said, well, we can't get a hold of anybody until the morning. I said, by the morning, I will be dead. I will die. Look at my vital signs. I will be dead by the time they get here. Well, we can't get a hold of them right now, or there's some reason. And I said, I need somebody to help me like now, or I'm not going to make it. And so she's, well, I'll try to get somebody. So I end up then they let me up and I go to the restroom. And then when I locked the door and I passed out, when I woke up, the very first thing I saw, I'm like this laying like this, laying on my arm. For those of you who can't see me, the very first thing I see when I wake up is a wristband on my wrist that says fall risk. Do you know what that means? It means you can't go anywhere by yourself. But they let me go by myself. And so I pass out, and like I said, and then wake up, open the door, fall back asleep. So about 6 months later, I'm in a golf tournament. And the guy that I played against that day says, "Hey, tonight I want to introduce you to my wife." So at that event that night, he says, "Oh, my wife is a doctor over at Press Hospital." And I said, "Press? I just spent a lot of time in Press." She goes, "You did? What happened?" And I started telling her, and she goes, "That was you?" And I said, "What do you mean?" And she goes, "I was the doctor that was walking down the hall when they had put you in that bed and they were letting you die. I walked in and you weren't hooked up to anything. You were going to die. And I got everything hooked back up and made up. She was telling me all the things that she made happen, but everybody was freaked out and running around and yelling, and nobody was helping me. And the odds that it's my buddy's wife that I just happened to meet, and she happens to be walking by when I needed that help, again, is another one of those things that just doesn't fit together. And every step along the way that happened to me, things that, like I said, with my buddy that calls me, he hasn't ever, he hadn't reached out to me in years, yet there he sees me and has my number and calls me and takes over. And a lot of things happened to keep me here for a reason. Mm-hmm. Because when I finally got out of the hospital, that same doctor called me and he said, "Gary, I couldn't tell you this when you were in the hospital, but if you weren't in the shape that you're in, you would have died. Most people that went through what you just went through don't make it." I was put on the ICU floor. I didn't know that the ICU, there are no showers in the bathrooms on the ICU. Do you know why?
Nope.
Because you don't make it out of the ICU. There's no reason to shower. Where I was at in the ICU, and now I'm in that room with no shower. So that's not very comfortable, knowing you're in a room you're not supposed to ever make it out of. And it was just a lot of things that happened in a row that gave me the major smack in the head to this: you're not on the right path. Mm. You need to change directions.
Yeah.
And
so that for our listener who's maybe a little bit uncomfortable about their own path, perhaps because they recognize or maybe relate to your story of not paying attention to the signs, getting comfortable or not getting uncomfortable enough, and kind of maybe complacent with their current trajectory. What is a powerful, positive next action that they can take? And I know I'm setting you up for this. I know it's going to be perhaps an 8-minute task for them. What's that thing that they're going to do that's going to give them some much needed clarity and direction?
People don't know what they want because they don't know who they are. Help them figure out who they are. It's easy to help them figure out what they want. Take the steps to figure out who you are. If you don't take the WHY.os discovery that I developed, find another way. Find a way. Pick a path. Figure out who you are so you can figure out why you were put here, so you can figure out what you want, so you can make a decision, so you can take action.
Yeah.
So you can move in the right direction.
But that why discovery tool, that takes 8 minutes, right? And
8 minutes is all.
You're gifting that to our listener, right? So they're like, I don't see any reason why they would find a different way or a different modality. They should just do this first. And if it doesn't resonate, then they can try something different. But I see no downside, only upside, with a minimum amount of commitment or investment. They're going to get potentially a huge upside.
I feel the same way. I don't want to feel like I'm trying to sell somebody on something, but
But you're selling them
if
on
you,
something free, so I don't see
yeah,
like this. This is a no-brainer to me, and I've taken
yeah,
the assessment. I've gone through the process, so I know my why, how, and what. Maybe you'd want to share
yeah,
some of the insights from
yeah,
my assessment with our listener.
yeah. So your audience knows you. You went through, discovered your why, how, and what, and your why is to contribute to a greater cause, add value, have an impact on the lives of others. So if you happen to have a pen or paper and paper near you, write down that Stephan's why is to contribute to a greater cause. His how is to challenge the status quo and think differently. And his what is to create trusting relationships or be the trusted source. So let's go through that. So Stephan's why is to contribute to a greater cause, have an impact on the lives of others. What that means is that he uses his time, his money, his energy, his connections, his resources to push other people forward, to be that pebble that starts the ripple effect that goes on in the lives of others. When they do better, it feels like he does better. How does that feel to you, Stephan?
It's spot on. And just one small example of that, maybe not small, but this podcast, which I've been doing for 9 years and have invested I've invested 9 years and multiple hundreds of thousands of dollars in this podcast.
Yeah.
And
So
I
that,
will continue to double down on it. It's a labor of love. I haven't made much, if any, money off of it. I can point to a few clients that have, for my SEO agency, that have come out of it, but for the most part, it's been a an expense, a cost center, and I'm not going to quit anytime soon because of that. It's that's not the point. That's not why I do it.
so that's Stephan's why. But then how he does that is by challenging the status quo and thinking differently. He doesn't follow traditional paths. He does it his own way. He doesn't follow the recipe. He may follow it for a little, but he's going to put his own Stephan stuff in there. And he thinks outside the box. He pushes limits. He imagines extraordinary. He gets people to think outside of the box they put themselves in, so that ultimately what he brings, his what, is to create trusting relationships, to be that trusted source, to be the one that others can count on, to be the one that's going to be their guide, their trusted guide, to take them where they're wanting to go.
Mm-hmm.
How does that feel to you?
Yeah, it's spot on. Just an example of me challenging the status quo
Yeah.
is all the episodes in the last several years about psychic abilities. And some people probably have left my community because of that. That's okay. They weren't meant for me then, and I wasn't meant for them. But my position is that we are all psychic. I believe that with my whole heart, that that's true. And that certainly goes against the status quo. That goes against conventional wisdom, and it probably sounds a bit crackpot to a lot of people.
And you were going against the status quo before your new way of going against the status quo,
Yeah,
right? When you were
yeah.
kind of the opposite of that.
Well, so I was very much into biohacking before that, and had a lot of biohacking um, guests talking about how broken the disease maintenance system, also known as our healthcare system, is, and how to be the CEO of your own health. So that's another way of I challenge the status quo before the whole psychic stuff, which happened because of a spiritual experience that most of my listeners are familiar with back in 2021. But before that, yeah, biohacking, because I saw it as such an important, I don't know, like resource and consciousness shift for people. And then before that, studying things like personal development and mindset and all that sort of stuff as a way to knock people out of their comfort zone, because I got knocked out of my comfort zone and it changed my life. It saved my life.
And before your spiritual awakening, you were kind of the opposite of spiritual awakening, right?
I was
Was that?
agnostic for 42
Yeah,
years. Yeah.
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 So you
Very
were.
disconnected. And so I know what that's like. I know how lonely that is when you feel like the universe is not friendly. It's at best indifferent, if not malevolent, because I was there.
So that's not typical traditional. Um, and then ultimately, though, what you bring is that trusted source, that person that you're there for them. You keep secrets. You are a confidant. You are someone that people can reach out to, and you're going to be that trusted guide for them
Yeah.
on their journey. Yeah.
And
And
I and
so,
I sense and I believe that people really do believe that I care, and sense that I care. They feel that, because I really do. I'm not just positioning or providing a just a throwaway message of availability and interest in other people's lives and best outcomes.
so how long would, for the listeners, how long would it have taken me or anyone else to know that about Stephan? That he wants to help others have a bigger impact by getting them to think outside their box and being that trusted source for them. I mean, how many conversations would I have had to have with him in order to know that about him? Would I ever know that? What would have to happen for me to know that? What kind of experiences would we have to have? But now, when I start with that, so I don't meet with anybody in person or on Zoom or anywhere unless I know their WHY.os, their Y operating system, because what are we going to talk about? I won't even know who I'm talking to. I'm going to have to rely on hope. Well, I sure hope I figure out who they
Or you'll have
are.
to rely on your psychic abilities and then
Well, my psychic ability,
get the
yes.
questions from above, like I do. I don't have any prepped questions for my guest. I just tune in and get the guidance on what to ask, live while the conversation's flowing.
But if you're wanting to connect and help someone in a way that they want to be helped, so everybody knows the golden rule: treat others the way you want to be treated. But the odds that Stephan and I want to be treated the same way are essentially very low.
Mm.
But now that I know who I'm talking to, I know the language that he speaks. I know the words he needs to hear in order to feel heard. I know what's going on behind the eyeballs, so I can connect in a way that's valuable to him versus just me. Imagine one person only speaks Spanish, one only speaks English. How good are they going to be able to? What kind of conversation are they going to be able to have? How deep can they go when they don't speak each other's language? And so, knowing somebody's YOS allows you into that space of who they are, gives you
Yeah.
the words to connect with them on a level that's much deeper, much faster, so you can make better connections even faster.
It seems like a
And
no-brainer that every person on our like a CEO or business owner's team should be taking the why discovery, and then the CEO would align that person's why, how, and what with whatever their job duties and responsibilities are.
yeah, exactly, and almost the opposite, which is find the job. Here's what we need that person to do. Here's the right YOS for that. Because that's a great point. There's a big difference between being able to do something and loving what you do. Totally different things. So you could, let's say you show up at my business and fill out your resume and you put on there, I'm good with numbers. Hey, wonderful. Stephan is going to be our new bookkeeper. We found our new bookkeeper. How long are you going to have energy for being a bookkeeper?
For me, 5 seconds.
5 seconds. But based on your resume and your capabilities, You could be a great bookkeeper. Based on your WHY.os, you'd be terrible at it. You'd hate it.
Yeah.
I mean, you wouldn't be terrible at it. You just wouldn't have any energy. And you could do it really well, but you just wouldn't want to.
Yeah.
So you'd run out of energy. So you figure out what it is you want done and then find somebody that's going to love doing it. Not based on can they do it, but based on will they really want to do it. And that's how you build an inspired team. That's how you put the right people on the bus and in the right seat. That's a great concept, but not easy to do unless you know their why, their how, and their what.
Yeah. So
And
the why, so there are 9 different whys.
9 different
My
whys.
why is to contribute to a greater cause. What are the other 8?
The second why is trust, which is, so there's 9 whys, and one of them is your why, one of them is your how, and one of them is your what. In fact, the WHY.os discovery that I developed, it's not just like a little quiz. It's there's over 4,000 possible question options, and I use logic-based programming, so you'll need to answer about 30 to 35 questions, but it goes all 9 levels deep. And it puts them in order of most important to least important to you. And the top 3 are your why, how, and what. And so the first one is contribute. Second one is trust, which is your what, to create relationships based upon trust. The third one is to make sense of the complex and make sense, which is to make sense of the complex and challenging. The fourth one is to do things, to find a better way and share it, which is my why. The fifth one is to do things the right way in order to get predictable results. So it's right way. The sixth one is challenge, which is your how, to challenge the status quo and think differently, think outside the box, push limits. The seventh, what am I on? 7 is to seek mastery to seek mastery and understanding. Dive in deep, look for the nuances. The 8th one is clarify, to make things clear and understandable. First for yourself and then for others. And then the last one is simplify, to decrease complexity, make easier to understand, easier to do. So those are the 9 whys. And here's the other thing, Stephan. What does a dentist know about figuring any of that out? So I didn't figure it out. I figured out the questions to ask, and then the results kept coming back the same. So what I didn't do is take the results that I was getting and put them through my language. For example, you and I go out to have a hamburger or a meal, and I say, Stephan, how's your hamburger? And you say, my hamburger sucks. And I said, oh, sounds like you don't like it very much. You'd say, no, that's not what I said. I said, my hamburger sucks. So if I don't use the words that you say, you don't think I heard you. Everything about those 9 whys came from what people actually said. Not my interpretation of what they said, not my filtering of it, but the actual words they used. The descriptions of them came from exactly what they said. And that's why it resonates. That's why the 2 most important 2 most common words I hear every day are exactly what you said. Spot on. Spot on. I say, how's that feel? Spot on. I hear that all day, every day.
Right. And when you were telling me earlier in this conversation that you got to, let's say, 80% accuracy for a while, in order to get to near 100%, you had to get lots and lots of this data, and then find the commonalities and all that.
Here's something that might be valuable for your listeners. And once I figured out the 9 whys, well, imagine how I got to those whys was through stories. So your why is housed in the limbic part of your brain. That's like the middle part of your brain. That's the part of the brain that's responsible for feelings like loyalty and trust. 100% of decision making happens there, but it doesn't have the capacity for language. So you can't tell somebody why you feel a certain way. You just do. So the only way I could get to your why was through stories. You would tell me a story after stories, and I could see the pattern in the story. Very time consuming, very mind numbing to listen to all these stories. Once I got to the 9 whys, once I figured out there were 9 whys, then I figured a different way to get to them that didn't require stories, didn't require listening to that, didn't require interpretation. And that's what's made it so accurate. So if you have a process, if you're listening to this right now and you have your own process, kind of like your IP, if you can figure out a way to get to the answer without you having to be there, it becomes infinitely more valuable and scalable. If I'm the only one that can help someone figure out their why, which I used to think, oh, I'm special. I'm the special one. I put in the 10,000 hours. I did all this. So I'm the only one. Nobody else can do it. And I thought that for a while. Till a friend of mine said, you know what, Gary, if that's true, how big of an impact are you ever going to make? And I thought, well, maybe it isn't true then. And so then I mind mapped my whole process and taught other people how to do it and got more data. And then I figured out a different way to get there, where it was all about what those people would say instead of the stories that they would tell. What are the words that you would use? So if you're listening and you have a IP, a process, a system that you want to take to more people, figure a way to get to it that doesn't require you to be there. And then you can license it or give it or whatever you want to do to other people to use. What happened to me the first time is I taught a lot of coaches to do what I was doing. And then they took my process and made a little tweak and, oh, it's my process now. Drove me crazy. I was like, no, that's not the right way to do it. You can't do it. That's not going to get you what you think it's going to get you. And yeah, now you call it your own process, but it's not very valuable. So once I turned it into software, now I knew it was 100% accurate. I knew I could license it to anybody. And if they screwed it up, I just turn it off and they can't do it anymore. But I gave it to them in a price point and in a way where they can now use it everywhere as their own tool, as the first step in working with them. And then they have all the rest of the other stuff that they do on their own that I have nothing to do with. Yeah. The rest of the process is all them. The first part is systematized to where I know they're going to get the right result right off the bat. And now I can speak it, like right before I saw You a Genius, I spoke to a, audience of a couple thousand, and they all discovered their why. So that now we can have now I can help them actually do it versus talk about it. They don't need another person coming on to tell them you need to know your why and not have a way to actually do it. Everyone talks about it. Simon Sinek talks about it. Tony Robbins talks about it. Michael Hyatt. I could go on and on. Friedrich Nietzsche. All these people talk about the value in knowing your why, but no one's ever helped you figure out how to do it, how to get it, how to have it.
Yeah.
And that's what I did. And that's why I feel like it's something I had to do, had to bring to the world. Solved one of life's most challenging questions. And now you can actually have it as well. So go take it. I'm going to give everybody the why. So you're going to be able to figure out your why. The WHY.os is the next step up. And if you want it, you'll see there's a really super inexpensive way for you to do that too. But you're going to get the why for free. Everybody's getting it.
Awesome. So where do we send them?
Yeah. So can we put it in your show notes?
Yep.
And I will have the link right there for them, and they can go and discover their why for free. And it'll be, your gift to them on how they can find their why. And if they want to take it further, they can take it further. They can get to their why, their how, and their what. And if they want to go further past that, there's a way to get all 9 levels deep. And something else I'll put in there for them. I created a clone, and I put over 4 million pieces of data into that clone. And I'll put the link for the clone there as well, because you can then discover your why, and then you can go ask me questions. I wish I could be with every one of you. But since I can't, I'll give you access to my clone where you can ask me any question about your why that you want. Hey, my why is challenge. Like, what does that mean? Like, what are some things I should be looking out for? Like, what are some career choices that would be great for me? What are some that wouldn't be good for me? Like, maybe I'm looking to date somebody with this why. would that make sense? There's so many questions you can ask me that will allow you to take it even further, since I can't personally be with every one of you.
Sounds great.
Anything we didn't talk about? Like a lot,
I'm sure
right?
plenty, but I think this is a great place to leave our listener to now take action, take your free assessment, go through that process to identify that why, so that they can get alignment in their lives.
And just so they know, if they just go to the website, it won't be free. So it's not free to anybody else, but it will be free to your listeners that have listened to the podcast. Kind of as you and I talked, it'll be your gift to them.
Awesome. So that'll be on the show notes for this episode on getyourselfoptimized.com.
Yep.
Awesome. All right. Well, this was such an inspiring and powerful story of finding your purpose and following it even when it was uncomfortable, and getting to the brink where if you hadn't made a shift, you probably wouldn't be here. So thank you for sharing with such candor, vulnerability, and love. Thank you.
Yeah, I haven't really shared this on a podcast before in this way. So I'm glad I got a chance to talk, because there's going to be somebody out there in the same spot. At least that's what I'm assuming.
Beautiful. Thank you, Gary. Thank you, listener. Thank you for being part of my tribe and for wanting to make the world a better place. We'll catch you in the next episode. In the meantime, have a fantastic week. This is your host, Stephan Spencer, signing off. If you want to hear more conversations like this on activating your highest potential, then I recommend episode 427 with Coot Blackson, episode 446 with Shara Ogan, and episode 493 with Marie Elizabeth Molly. Also, I invite you to check out the show notes, transcript, action-based checklist, and all the URLs mentioned in this episode with Dr. Gary Sanchez at getyourselfoptimized.com/503. If you enjoyed the conversation, I encourage you to share this episode and, more importantly, the entire show, Get Yourself Optimized, with a friend. Change your life and help me spread the light. Thank you.